Hello and welcome back to another Parry This alternate history video. Today we are continuing our series of alternate historical battles where we take troops or technology from a distinct time period and send them back in time to a significant battle and see if a limited number of them, with period accurate gear and a normal amount of equipment and ammunition, would be able to change the outcome of the historical battle. Today we are sending Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba and a 16th century pike and shot army back to the Battle of Nicopolis in 1396. If all of that sounds interesting, and this is the first video you're seeing in this series, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and check out the other videos I have already produced in this series, as you may enjoy them as much as you enjoy this one. As always, I like to start with the relevant historical information, so I will begin with an explanation of the real history behind the Battle of Nicopolis, and then I'll do the same for our futuristic Spanish army, before getting into our hypothetical scenario and deciding what the outcome would most likely be. Section 1. A complete historical analysis of the Battle of Nicopolis. The Battle of Nicopolis, occurring on September 25th, 1396, stands as a pivotal confrontation at the close of the Middle Ages, emblematic of the relentless expansion of the Ottoman Empire and the last significant crusade effort by the Christian Knights of Europe. This monumental clash, unfolding near the Danubian fortress of Nicopolis in modern-day Bulgaria, marked a turning point in geopolitical power dynamics, heralding the Ottoman dominion in southeastern Europe and the waning of the traditional feudal knight as a centerpiece of warfare. The stage was set for conflict as the Ottoman Empire, under the vigorous leadership of Sultan Bayezid I, pressed into the Balkans, laying claim to territories long held by Christian kingdoms. The fall of key Byzantine strongholds and their threat to Christendom led to a call for a crusade by Pope Boniface IX, rallying support from several European principalities. This was not merely a religious expedition, but also a response to geopolitical necessities, an attempt to curb Ottoman expansion that threatened the entirety of Europe. The Crusader army, a melange of forces from across Christendom, included knights from the French nobility led by the renowned John the Fearless, Duke of Burgundy, Hungarian troops under King Sigismund of Hungary, and various contingents from Wallachia, Germany, England, and other Christian states. Their combined might, however, was not matched by unity of command or purpose, often a shortcoming in such diverse coalition. Conversely, the Ottomans, under the astute leadership of Sultan Bayezid I, presented a unified front. Their ranks boasted the elite janissaries, fearsome Sipahi cavalry, and auxiliaries from vassal states, demonstrating early modern military organization's efficacy. The Crusaders laid siege to Nicopolis, believing the fortress key to destabilizing Ottoman control. Bayezid, capitalizing on the besiegers' overextended position, forced a battle. Notable for the impetuosity of the Crusader knights, particularly the French, whose premature cavalry charge against the Janissaries disregarded the grand strategy, the battle quickly turned in the Ottomans' favor when the Ottomans feigned a retreat, luring the Crusaders into a vulnerable position before a general counterattack, highlighting the superior tactical flexibility and discipline of Bayezid's troops. The battle was catastrophically one-sided. While exact figures remain in historical debate, it's believed that the Crusaders suffered devastating losses, with thousands killed or captured. In stark terms, the casualties among the nobility were staggering, leading to ransoms that further strained European coffers. Bayezid's victory solidified his control over the region, rendering the Balkans and beyond vulnerable to Ottoman influence. The defeat caused political upheavals in the involved European nations, particularly Hungary and France, destabilizing their nobility and causing a re-evaluation of military tactics and alliances. The fallout from Nicopolis was profound. The Ottomans, virtually unchallenged, continued their expansion into southeastern Europe, culminating in the fall of Constantinople in 1453. For Christendom, the loss marked the end of the effective large-scale crusade, underscoring the need for more modern approaches to military strategy and technology. Furthermore, the battle exposed the weaknesses of the feudal military system, with its emphasis on heavy cavalry and the code of chivalry against a well-disciplined, centrally organized force. It prefaced the rise of infantry and the integration of gunpowder weaponry innovations that would define warfare in the ensuing centuries. In retrospect, the Battle of Nicopolis symbolizes a shift in the old world order, presaging the vast changes that would sweep through Europe and the Middle East in the years to follow. It remains a study of the interplay of strategy, psychology, and technology in warfare, and a testament to the changing fabrics of global power structures. Section 2. The arms, armor, and tactics of the Battle of Nicopolis. The Battle of Nicopolis was a culmination of medieval warfare strategies, battles, with both the European Crusaders and the Ottoman forces employing the era's characteristic arms and armor, albeit with significant differences in utilization and tactics that ultimately influenced the battle's outcome. This section delves into the specific military hardware used and the consequential maneuvers by both sides during this historic confrontation. Starting with arms and armor, for the Crusader side, the European knights were the epitome of medieval military power. They were heavily armored, often from head to toe. They wore plate armor or chainmail hauberks, steel greaves, and gauntlet, and their horses were sometimes equally well protected. This heavy armor provided excellent defenses against slashing weapons and arrows, but significantly impeded mobility. The knights wielded traditional medieval weaponry. The longsword was a staple, supplemented by maces, warhammers, and battle axes, designed to dent or penetrate armor. For ranged combat, crossbows were the primary choice in this battle, having a significant impact force capable of puncturing armor at close to medium range. However, the rate of fire was a disadvantage of the crossbow, as a skilled crossbowman can only fire 2 quarrels or crossbow bolt per minute. In contrast, the Ottoman forces included the elite janissaries, which were lightly armored, facilitating greater mobility. They wore flexible chainmail, padded jackets or brigandines, along with steel helmets. This ensemble offered protection while also allowing for swifter movement, necessary for their fluid battle tactics. The Ottomans employed a diverse range of weaponry, such as the kalij, or a type of curved sword, yataghans, a shorter blade for closer combat, and various polearms were standard for all forms of close combat. The composite bow, a hallmark of the Ottoman military, outshone the crossbow in terms of rate of fire and reload speed, albeit with lesser penetrating power. An adept archer could release between 10 to 12 arrows a minute, maintaining a consistent barrage. And now moving on to battle tactics and progression. The initial phase of the battle saw the Crusaders besieging the city of Nicopolis, intent on flushing out the Ottomans. They initiated the assault on the fortress. However, this move would stretch their resources thin and create discord among commanding nobles, setting the stage for the following tactical errors. In the critical next stage, the heavily armored French knights, without waiting for the full force's alignment, launched a headstrong charge against the Ottoman line. The knights, thundering across the field in their heavy armor, intended to shatter the Ottoman front with brute force. However, Bayezid had anticipated this move, strategically placing his archers and janissaries up front, with auxiliary troops and Sipahi cavalry held back. As the knights crashed into the Ottoman line, they were met with a hail of arrows, a rain of steel that tested the limits of their armor. Despite casualties, the initial Crusader charge seemed successful, pushing back the first Ottoman line in a display of chivalric warfare. But this was a calculated gambit by Bayezid, who had ordered his troops to feign a retreat, luring the overzealous knights into a trap. Once the knights were overextended, the Sipahi cavalry held in reserve executed a classic pincer movement, enveloping the Crusader forces. These highly mobile horsemen, armed with lances and sabers, harried the now disordered and fatigued knights, exploiting the weaknesses in their heavy armor and encumbered movements. Meanwhile, the Crusader infantry, which included pikemen and crossbowmen, was unable to support effectively, outpaced by the rapid developments in the field and hampered by the terrain that worked to the Ottomans' advantage. The inability of the crossbowmen to provide adequate covering fire, coupled with the strategic misstep of the charge, spelled disaster for the Crusaders. The final phase of the battle was grim for the Crusader forces. Surrounded, fatigued, and unable to form a cohesive defense, they fell in large numbers. The Ottomans, utilizing their numerical advantage, mobility, and composite bow fire, overwhelmed the remaining resistors. Bayezid's tactical foresight, capitalizing on the overconfidence and disunity of Crusader leaders, ensured a decisive Ottoman victory. In summary, the Battle of Nicopolis was not merely a contest of arms, but a demonstration of advanced tactical understanding, where the Ottomans' combined use of feigned retreat, archery barrages, and cavalry charges outmaneuvered the traditional military doctrine of the Crusader forces. This battle underscored a pivotal transition in warfare, highlighting the limitations of the knights' heavy armor against coordinated, multifaceted tactics, and setting the stage for the future of military engagements. Section 3. Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba and Pike and Shot Warfare. In the annals of military history, few figures shine as brightly as Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba, known reverently as El Gran Capitan, a mastermind of the battlefield during the tumultuous turn of the 16th century. His innovative tactics, leadership prowess, and strategic foresight marked a transformative era in European warfare, particularly with the advent of the revolutionary pike and shot combat methodology. Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba, the military maestro. Fernandez de Cordoba emerged as a military luminary during the Italian Wars, a series of conflicts waged over the control of Italy, primarily involving the major powers of France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire. His campaigns, particularly those during the wars in Granada and later in Italy, were not merely exercises in conquest, but lessons in military restructuring and strategic innovation. His brilliant brilliance lay not only in his command during the heat of battle, but also in his comprehensive approach to warfare. He understood the importance of logistics, pioneering the use of mobile field hospitals, and introducing comprehensive supply trains to ensure his forces were well fed, well supplied, and combat ready. Under his leadership, armies were not mere instruments of brute force, but finely tuned mechanisms, with each component from infantry to cavalry operating in a coordinated strategic manner. Perhaps his most lasting contribution to military strategy was his perfection of the tercio formations, a tactical innovation that leveraged the combined strengths of different military units, changing the face of infantry warfare. By integrating the devastating firepower of early firearms with the defensive solidity of traditional pikemen, Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba set a standard for tactical sophistication that would influence European battlefields for centuries. Pike and shot warfare, the dawn of modern tactic. The essence of pike and shot tactics, as employed in the 16th century, lay in the combined arms approach, particularly the integration of the long-reaching pikes with the then revolutionary arquebus firearm. The arquebus, a forerunner of the musket, was one of the first firearms to see widespread military use. Equipped with this weapon, arquebusiers could deliver deadly volleys of leaden death, effective at a range of approximately 100 meters, though capable of reaching up to 300 meters in trained hands. However, accuracy beyond the 100-meter mark was notoriously unreliable. The rate of fire was limited, with skilled soldiers able to fire 2, perhaps 3 rounds per minute under ideal conditions. Due to the cumbersome reloading process, these soldiers typically wore minimal armor, perhaps a breastplate and a helmet, prioritizing mobility and speed over heavy protection. The pikemen were the defensive stalwarts of the formation, wielding pikes that could extend up to 18 feet. Clad in armor that often included a sturdy breastplate, helmet, and sometimes limb protections, they were tasked with warding off cavalry charges and protecting the more valuable arquebusiers during their lengthy reload period. Artillery in the 16th century had evolved from the cumbersome bombards of prior ages. Cannons of this era, such as the culverin, could fire iron or stone balls of various weight over distances exceeding 1,000 meters, with an effective range, where accuracy was still somewhat assured, of about 500 meters. These cannons could deal catastrophic damage to fortifications and were instrumental in both sieges and field battles. However, their rate of fire was limited due to the long reload times and the need for precise aiming. Even with the rise of pike and shot tactic, cavalry retained a crucial role on the battlefield. These units, often wearing plate armor and mounted on well-bred war horses, wielding lances, longswords, or warhammers, they were tasked with charging enemy lines, exploiting weaknesses in infantry formations, and pursuing routing foes. In this matrix of range, defense, and mobility, Fernandez de Cordoba orchestrated symphonies of destruction. Under his command, these diverse units, each with its own strengths and vulnerabilities, coalesced into a singular, formidable force, capable of confronting both traditional medieval armies and adapting to the evolving battlefield strategies of the time. Through meticulous live drills, strategic foresight, and an intrinsic understanding of the multifaceted nature of warfare, El Gran Capitan harnessed the full potential of pike and shot tactics. His campaigns underscored the importance of unity, discipline, and the transformative power of technology in warfare, elements that would define military evolution for centuries to come. Section 4, Setting up the Scenario. Now that you're all well informed of the history we are discussing, and you should be totally in the know regarding this extremely important historical event, as well as the different types of warfare we will be discussing, let's get into the scenario. Today we are doing it a little differently. Instead of supplementing the existing forces, we are going to totally replace the losing side with a futuristic army. Obviously, if numbers are no issue, you can always obtain victory through superior technology. So what we will be doing today for our challenge is deciding on the bare minimum force of a 16th century pike and shot army led by Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba that I believe would be required to defeat the 25,000 man strong Ottoman army at Nicopolis. And the answer is quite simple. I believe it would take no more than 4,500 men backed up by 20 period accurate cannons to utterly defeat the Ottoman army, crushing them into the dust at Nicopolis. Now there are a lot of variables here, but I'm prepared to explain fully how I believe that this would play out. There is, of course, always the chance that a full-on charge from the Ottomans would be too overwhelming to resist, and the vastly larger Ottoman army would simply run over the Spanish tercio. However, I fully believe that even if this were the case, the outcome would still be far less one-sided than the historical event, and the Ottoman army would be irreparably crippled in the region as a result of their Pyrrhic victory. But with all that negativity aside, let me explain why I think the West would actually achieve a decisive victory in this engagement. The specific number of this army would be as follows: 2,000 pikemen, 1,500 arquebusiers, 20 heavy cannons, and 1,000 heavy cavalry. Ammunition, food, and medical supplies would not be an issue, as the Grand Captain was renowned for supply lines, and part of this hypothetical situation is the assumption that they would have adequate supplies for the engagement. Section 5. The scenario. Event and outcome. In the lush landscape near Nicopolis, the stage is set for a clash of epochs, a violent anachronism where the famed Gonzalo Fernandez de Cordoba, with a formidable Spanish army from the 16th century, stands against the might of the Ottoman force as they were in 1396. In this speculative scenario, the tercios are poised not merely to battle, but to alter history through a decisive victory achieved by superior tactics, technology, and leadership. As the Ottoman forces approach, Fernandez de Cordoba arranges his troops strategically. The pikemen, a phalanx of bristling steel, are at the front, providing a protective wall behind which the arquebusiers and cannons are positioned. The heavy cavalry flank the formation, ready to exploit any weakness or to break in the Ottoman ranks. The Ottomans, accustomed to the warfare of their time, would likely utilize their composite bowmen, light cavalry, and janissaries in their initial assault, expecting to quickly rout what appears to be a numerically inferior foe. However, this is where the time warp intervention begins to deviate wildly from historical precedents: the firepower factor. As the Ottomans charge, they're met with a hail of lead from the arquebusiers, the Spanish firearms making their first thunderous statement on the battlefield. With an effective range of up to 100 meters, these primitive guns wouldn't have the pinpoint accuracy of later model, but their psychological impact would be tremendous. The lethal chaos they bring incomprehensible to warriors from nearly 200 years in the past. Cannons with a devastating effective range of around 500 meters would roar next, the ground shaking with their ferocity. Capable of firing solid iron balls capable of decimating tightly packed units, these cannons would tear through the Ottoman ranks with brutal efficiency. For the Ottomans, who in their time would have faced siege cannons only during fortification assaults, the rapid directed firepower in an open field would be both terrifying and demoralizing. Tactical maneuvers and the role of heavy cavalry. Despite their losses, the Ottomans under Bayezid I's command would attempt flanking maneuvers with their light cavalry, trying to encircle the Spanish force. However, this is where the heavy cavalry and the pikemen come into play. Fernandez de Cordoba, anticipating this move, would order a countercharge by the armored cavalry while directing his pikemen to hold the line, their long pikes creating an impenetrable hedgehog formation. The heavy cavalry, utilizing their greater momentum and the protective advantage of their plate armor, would clash violently with the Ottoman sepahes, likely shattering the lighter armored, though no less brave, Ottoman horsemen. Any Ottoman forces that managed to reach the Spanish lines would find the pikemen a nearly insurmountable barrier, with their 18-foot pikes providing a lethal deterrent to both horse and rider. The decisive turn. As the battle wears on, the superior Spanish firepower and tactical cohesion under Fernandez de Cordoba's seasoned leadership would begin to tell. The disciplined volleys of arquebus fire, combined with the continuous cannonade, would exact a grievous toll on the Ottoman forces, their numbers dwindling under the onslaught. Recognizing the wear on his opponents, Fernandez de Cordoba would seize this crucial juncture to order a full charge, the pikemen lowering their pikes to push forward in a steel wave, the heavy cavalry striking from the flanks and the arquebusiers providing covering fire. The Ottomans, though skilled and courageous, would find the Spanish tercios' combined arms approach overwhelming. Aftermath and consequences. In our scenario, this concerted push would likely break the Ottoman lines, leading to a chaotic rout, with casualties on the Ottoman side disproportionately high, possibly reaching upwards of 15 to 20,000 men. Considering the initial numerical disadvantages and the shock of facing such devastating unfamiliar weaponry, the Spanish forces would not emerge unscathed, but their losses would be comparatively lighter, perhaps totaling 1,000 to 1,500 given their technological and tactical advantages. The repercussions of such a victory would ripple through history. With Bayezid I's army crushed, the power dynamics in the region would shift dramatically. The Ottoman Empire's expansion into Europe would be severely stunted if not halted, altering the geopolitical landscape for centuries to come. Christian Europe, energized by this miraculous victory, might unite more solidly in the face of external threats, potentially even launching more concerted efforts to reclaim territory and influence along the Mediterranean and beyond. In the grand tapestry of history, this fantastical victory would not just be a triumph of arms, but a pivotal juncture that could veer the course of nations and empires along paths radically different from those that we know today. And that's that. I believe that the modern pike and shot army under the decisive and organized leadership of the Grand Captain would be more than enough enough to handle the Ottoman army at the Battle of Nicopolis. But what do you think? Be sure to let me know in the comment section what your thoughts are. Am I wrong? Would numbers carry the day? Did I give the time travelers too much power in this engagement? Do you like the total replacement method I used for today's video, or do you prefer strategic supplementation like in previous videos? Be sure to share your well thought out and eloquent thoughts on the subject down below. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you on the next battlefield.